show. So we are all over the world, and of course, especially to the Filipinos. Good morning. We have a very special guest. And if you were a student of culinary history, the name would have to cross the path. And for those serious foodies, serious chefs, the book of memories gathered that were gathered by Miss our guest will be the ones to really shape the culinary DNA of most of us. And I
Thank
would like to welcome Miss Amy Besa, who crossed from New York, going to Manila and New York. I don't know how she does it. It's my magic, but she has the restaurant that the very first brave restaurant that showcased Philippine cuisine. Welcome, Miss Amy Besa.
thank you, Nancy.
So
Hello.
you're in New York now.
Yes, I'm in New York.
Yes.
Since COVID, I haven't been able to travel too much.
All
So
right.
I've been here in New York,
Okay.
cooped up, quarantined.
Yeah, but where do you feel more at home?
Both. I have great homes.
Uh huh.
A home is where you make it,
Uh
right?
huh.
It's where all your friends are, and where you do the thing that you love most, which is food. And uh, the U.S. and the Philippines are both homes to great food, and it's just a wonderful experience to be able to weave those two things together,
I mean,
and
do you dream food? Do you dream food sometimes? I would
yeah,
imagine ano ka eh.
huh?
I would
Yeah.
imagine 100% foodie ka talaga.
Well, we had the 2017 DFA tour, uh,
Mm-hmm.
sponsored by the Department of Foreign Affairs. Boy, I really took advantage of that because of the diplomatic pouch.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to 5 cities, four in the US and one in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to ship like two or three big containers, like big boxes of more than 50 ingredients, indigenous and endemic ingredients.
Okay.
A lot of vinegars because you cannot bring vinegars over.
Yeah, you cannot.
So when we were given the opportunity for a diplomatic pouch, I really took advantage
Okay.
and brought gallons and gallons of vinegar. And I found one more gallon in, in our house here. Would you
Uh-huh.
believe? It was buried underneath all the debris.
What kind?
Huh? The
What
coconut
kind?
sap vinegar from Sorsogon.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oo.
Conching, Lola Conching. Linda Corsiga produces it. She's incredible. You
Yeah,
should use the vinegar.
yeah.
She,
I've
she
seen that.
and she's been doing this since 20 or 30 years ago, you know.
Very nice packaging also. Yeah.
Yeah, and she exports drums of that vinegar here to the States, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get it through Whole Foods. It's so expensive lang.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
I think I don't and I think it's sold in other countries like Australia under a different brand name.
All
But
right.
it's organic and from coconut sap
Yeah.
talaga.
But Ami, you're so good at promoting people's products and people's thoughts. And that book was really marvelous when
Thank you.
we read it from cover to cover, plus all the wonderful photos of none other than Neil Oshima.
Yeah.
Now, but we
Yeah.
want to hear your story from you yourself. Your culinary DNA, how you started. Since siguro since you had your first,
You want to say hello to Romy?
Ah, Romy, Papogi.
Romy, come here. He just came home from the restaurant.
Dapat kasama na nga rin si Romy sa kwento. Romy is from what? Hi! Hey,
Hello.
you look good!
Oh,
Yeah, I do his
yeah.
hair.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to see you.
All
Yeah, I just
right.
came back from the restaurant.
And we prayed a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
Salamat.
yeah.
So,
Thank
anong
you very
chismis?
much.
No,
Huh?
she was asking you where you're from.
Yeah, anong province?
Sorsogon. Erosin Sorsogon.
And
Ah,
erosin, is from the word erosion.
really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, sina Dula, di ba? Sina Dula, si Goto King, they're
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Portugal.
Pero ibang ano yon, ha? That's northern, I think, ano yon, nasa Naga yata yun,
Okay.
or
Hindi. Sorsogon.
Albay. But I
No.
don't think that's from Sorsogon.
Sabi nila, they're from Sorsogon, the Dula
Ah, yeah,
family.
but I think their restaurant may be in Albay.
Uh, Manila. Anyway, I'm happy to
Oh.
see both of you. And let's get it over with. Yung romansa muna. Before
Alis na
natin
yan!
mag-ayos, ha? Hindi pwede. Kailangan, yung version dapat pareho, ha? Chef.
No, it has to be different.
Okay,
No,
tapos.
as I was telling you, we met
Yeah.
because of martial law,
Yeah,
right?
I know that was so interesting.
I
Oh
was,
my gosh.
I was exiled. I was self-exiled. I had to leave the country because I knew that martial law was going to be imposed. So, and then I was able to get a student exchange program, right? Tanda-tanda ko na noon. I was already 20. But my friends sila Maan Ontiveros at saka sila Sylvia Munoz were able to get me out. And
Uh-huh.
I was in Germany for a year. And then when I was in Germany, my mother wrote me and said, "Don't come back because you're on the arrest list." I was in the student council of UP. That's why.
Ah, okay.
So I applied and I was accepted in a couple of universities, but I decided to go to Temple University in Philadelphia because my brother is a doctor there. He
Hmm.
was going to support me. So, and then he was in Temple also, taking his PhD in economics, which
Doctor of Economics ka pala.
no, he
Hindi,
didn't
hindi, hindi.
finish
No, no,
it.
no.
Ah, okay.
He finished
Wow.
his coursework, but he didn't do his dissertation. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I did. I got my master's.
Okay. So you
In-
were two nerds who met nerds.
Yeah, well, I was
Brainiac.
involved. Yeah, yeah. Well, I was involved in the anti-martial law movement.
Uh-huh.
And so I think there was an event in Temple, I don't know, a party, and we were leafleting. So I was there, selling the Philippine newspaper against Marcos. And I met him there. So then he expressed, anti-martial law sentiments. So we invited him to the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got roped in,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we met. And then I got really interested because he was working as a chef. I mean, as a cook at that time
Mm-hmm.
in the restaurant, and I was very much interested in food. So, um, the owner of that restaurant also owned another restaurant called the Commissary, and I was able to get a job as a baker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how actually I'm a baker at heart. I love baking. So you know, and then from there we got involved.
Nag-eyeballa na kayo.
And then we moved to New York in 1979 because the movement asked us to move to New York
Okay.
so we could organize there because there was a bigger Filipino community in New York, and then that's where Romy also was able to establish himself as a chef. and
Mm-mm.
he got a job in this very famous, well, it was this small restaurant that was doing the first, was following the lead of Alice Waters.
Mm.
Yeah, they really broke a lot of ground in New
Uh-huh.
York. That it was called Hubert or Hubert's. I
Uh-huh.
don't know. So and he was lunch chef, right, Roms?
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
so you have been married for
Well, we got 41
Since
years.
1981.
wow.
Yeah. Huh. I remember uh, I remember when we were celebrating our 5th anniversary and we said like, I want to kill you already. It's been 5 long years.
Yeah,
At that time, when you're newly married, you really want to kill each other first.
correct.
But then, you get too old to fight. So,
Uh-huh. Lalo na ano, nakakatakot 'pag chef kasi ano, eh, baka pakainin ng lason. Anyway, what was the dish that Romy you will cook for her just to appease her?
No, she's the one who cooks. I don't
no,
usually
Wow,
no,
cook.
naughty
I
boy.
don't
I
usually cook at
usually
home.
cook, but lately he's been really cooking for me. So
Wow.
I've been really having good food.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Hindi mo siya ginayuma, Romy, nung first time siya kumain sa Hubert?
No, siya, pinikot niya ako.
Sabi ko na nga dapat sabay kayo talaga, eh, para ano, eh, magkaanuhan na, eh. Oh,
I
anyway,
sharpened my knives.
very good girl. Good girl. So anyway, so now that we're over that, tapos na yung ating celebrity ek-ek. Let's now go to the culinary. So you have to tell us your story. You
Yeah.
said at 6 years old, you were dreaming of the pellets of sugar that was in that
Yeah.
soup of Dalia.
No,
Let's go.
well, there were two major memories. One was pandesal
Okay.
in Iba Zambales. My grandmother, I would like wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the houseboy would go to the local Chinese bakery where they bake bread in like cement ovens, right? You can't find that now. Uh, and I remember it was just steaming hot and lots of butter and so good. And then that plus the suman.
Uh-huh.
And my brain was like branded like, that's when I said to myself, this food is my food, I love it. I am forever. I was a little kid, right? That's why, when I got here to the States and people were telling stories about how Filipino Americans were made to feel ashamed about their food, that they were taunted because they brought stinking food to class. And
Mhm.
there was so much, like, I was so shocked. I never experienced any time in my life where I would be ashamed of this food. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, nothing beats this food ever.
Okay. I think that's the activista in you, eh.
Yeah, no, it's because I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I nothing can replace those original experiences of tasting rice with lye and wrapped in leaves with coconut sugar. It's and then I've the kakanin, actually, I just love kakanin. And you know what? Kakanin is just a permutation of three or four ingredients,
Yeah.
right? It's just rice, sugar, and
Coconut.
sometimes coconut milk,
Yeah.
and wrapped in some leaf,
Yeah.
banana, buri, pandan, whatever.
Mhm.
It's but you go to every location in the Philippines and it's different because the rice tastes different, the coconut tastes different. And there's some like when I was traveling around the country researching for the book, there were all these patterns that were coming up, like I'd like ask, so what's your recipe for this, right? And it's usually 1:1 is to 1. Oh, 1 kilo of rice with 1 kilo of sugar and 1 kilo of grated coconut or whatever, right? It's like it's so simple. But then, the water, I think, like, if you go to Calasiao, right? They
Yes.
read about this that the puto of Calasiao, they tried to transplant it to other towns in Pangasinan. They couldn't do it, right? Because well, like if you're doing puto, you're involving bacteria to ferment,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to suman, which you do not ferment, right? You
Yeah.
ferment because there are basically three great categories of kakanin, right? There's the suman, the puto, and the bibingka. And those names are really indicative of the method of cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Puto means steam, bibingka means bake, and suman means boiled or steamed, right? So um, you you know you, you every place that does it has a different type of water,
Yes.
and the bacteria would be different.
Speaking of water in Calasiao, I also did research there. In fact, San Miguel has a brewery there because they said the water is perfect for brewing beer.
Wow.
And the women who were doing the puto were taking it from the artesian well, so it
Oh.
was very alkaline.
Oh.
And that they said that is the alkaline that is acts like yeast na lumalambot pero hindi yung dikit-dikit. Kaya
Oh.
maganda, maganda. At saka it went well with the liya, the lye water. So, you see, you're right na it's three ingredients but many kinds of permutations and
Yes.
characters. You are so
And
right.
the climate changes, the soil changes, the hands of the people change.
Yep.
And when I went to Cebu, that's where I discovered the bibingka were raised by yeast, by the tuba,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fermented. And I remember when we went to Bulacan,
Yes.
and we went to this putuhan, right?
Yep.
And it was just so eye-opening because I was used to, we went to San Miguel, Bulacan some other time, and there they made the lavadura, right? Which is they ferment this rice batter. That's
Mm-hmm.
their starter,
Uh-huh.
the lavadura.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of are looking for that flavor of yeast, like in baked bread. But then, when we went to that putu maker in, uh, was it in Malolos, Bulacan, or
Hindi malolos.
um,
A smaller
Santa
town.
Maria? Okay, but well, I was talking to the guy who
Yeah,
owned
the
the
old man, right? That he was.
yeah, and I was so surprised. He said, So I said, I was asking him, do you use levadura? No. And he said, no, we don't like the smell and the taste of fermented rice. Kasi it's like parang bulok. So we use baking powder. And I was like, oh, oh my God. Like, so it is, because, you can, I was like taking it for granted that, because I love the smell and the taste of yeast, and fermented stuff. But then I met this person who did not like it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
I have this belief, I have this construct that I use all the time, which is cultural preference. And
okay.
that works in so many ways, like, it was just so amazing for me to encounter someone like that. And because of the fact that they did not like the smell and the taste of fermented rice, they used baking powder
Mm-hmm.
and they made their puto differently,
Yeah.
right? So I asked them. So first they steamed rice instead of boiling in water. They steamed it, so it wasn't too mushy, right? So
It's like a Chinese way. Chinese would steam it before making it into their own dessert.
I mean, it was just and I and the thing is, baking powder is a modern thing, right? It came from the Americans. I
Did you
mean,
feel disappointed because of that?
no, I wasn't disappointed. It was just my mind just like blew open and like, like you don't know anything. No, but no, because that every time I travel and I encounter something like that, I remind myself, you really don't know anything. You you haven't you haven't scratched the surface of this thing. Like, that's why for me, learning about Filipino food is so interesting, because you can do it your entire life and you will never end your journey or your research, your search for information, for truth, for wisdom. It will never end, because there's
Okay.
people
Let's talk about let's talk
wisdom
yeah.
will
But let's
always
talk
be
about
there.
Ami.
Huh?
Ami, we want to hear you about you. We will talk about your book later. You, how did you realize that you're going to be a foodie for the rest of your life? Not everybody wakes up like that. How about
No, I,
you?
I never really defined myself as a foodie. I just love this food. And it started with kakanin, right? I mean, I love kakanin because, food, uh, because there was so much mystery about kakanin. It's something that I could not, I was beyond my grasp, Like, you could cook. Like, di ba, cooking is easy, right? I can make adobo, I can make, you know, I can make sinigang, I can make whatever. Because, to me, that's a lot easier. But do not ask me to make puto. That is beyond, beyond. You know how many times we've tried to make puto in the restaurant, and we always end up with bricks, with rock hard stones, or you know we can make bibingka and suman, but
Mhm.
puto, forget it.
Talaga?
Just, to me, the hardest thing in the whole world to do.
Because you're trying to make it without baking powder. You're making it the traditional, the natural way from scratch.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
then
the
when I go around the the country and eat puto. It's so good, and they're not, you know, and they just do it in their sleep.
I learned one secret though. They use
What?
tonic water.
Ah, to make it bubble,
Make it bubble.
to make it light.
Yeah, parang when you're making pancakes, diba? Sometimes you
Wow.
can add a little soda water.
Kaya, pero ako, I'll just buy it. You
Okay.
know?
So,
I'll just
oh,
buy it. That's why, whenever I'm in Manila and I go to Salcedo Market, that's the first thing I do. I buy the putong pulo and all those puto that that they sell there. That's the first thing I buy
okay.
because
How
forget it.
did you how did you move from after your I know you're still an activist, but from the time you left Manila and now in New York, how did you set up your roots, Philippine culinary roots in New York?
Well, you have to understand that Romy and I started the
Wait,
restaurant.
something's wrong with the parang the internet is a little slow. Do you mind going hello?
Okay. No.
Oh, no.
Ah, 5G here, so
We can you start
ah,
again?
the internet is fine.
Yeah, mine too. Okay. All right. Anyway, you said Romy and you.
Well, one thing you
Okay.
have to understand is that when Romy and I opened Cendrillon, our first restaurant in New York,
Yeah.
in Manhattan, we were no longer young. We were
Mm-hmm.
45 years old.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because every time someone asks us for advice about going into the restaurant world, we always tell them, you have to be young because you need your stamina, you know. But then we were both 45 years old when we opened.
Yeah, but you had
That's
stamina
no longer young,
till
right?
now.
We're in about 5 years, we were 50.
Yeah.
And so now we're in our early 70s
Mm-hmm.
because we've been doing this for 27 years. But, we're um, the one advantage is that we had a certain type of maturity already. We
That's
had
true.
something in our belts, right? I worked in Wall Street for 10 years. And before that, I was just doing church work and earning a living just so I could do my activism. But I think we were already when we did the restaurant, we knew what we needed in order to do the restaurant. And you
Uh-huh.
know how when people say you need a vision, you need a concept, we had a theoretical foundation. We
Yeah.
went to back up that concept. And the fact that, and because when Romy started cooking in the 1970s as a student, he didn't know anything about food. He had never cooked before in his whole life. So he started off as a dishwasher in this restaurant.
Uh-huh.
And then one day, the chef was Thai. It was a French American restaurant, but the chef was Thai, trained in Le Cordon Bleu. He had a big fight with the owner, and his staff was also Thai, right? All walked out. Since Romy was not Thai, he was the only one left behind. And the owner said, do you want to cook? He was a dishwasher. And all the time he was a dishwasher, he was looking and learning how to cook just by looking. So he said yes, and he took over. Right? And then he started cooking. First, they made him do staff meals. And by the time I knew him, I met him, I would visit him at the restaurant, and everybody would be raving about him. He said, "Ah, he makes the best staff meals." And then I said, "What do you cook for them?" "Oh, I just make adobo." And then, and he doesn't do adobo either. Right? So whatever he remembers, he would use wine, the leftover wine, to and bake things and call it adobo. But then he
Mhm.
started buying books because he didn't know anything about food, cooking, or whatever. He started buying books from Elizabeth David, Jane Grigson, Alan Johnson. All these are British food writers.
Uh-huh.
And that's where and these people are intellectual. They're not just recipe people. They wrote about the history of whatever they were writing about, or connected it with literature or with mythology or whatever, right? And
Very Oxford.
Oxford, right? Alan Johnson is Oxford, right?
Yeah.
And Doreen contributed to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's why, I was so happy when Oxford University Press did the Oxford Companion to Desserts and Sweets. They asked me to do the Philippine section.
Mhm.
So I did that. And then after that, they did another book. It's like the Oxford Companion. No, it wasn't an Oxford Companion, but it was Oxford. It was the history of food in New York City, the food of Gotham. So
Mm.
it's a good thing they didn't ask me to write about Philippine food. Uh, they asked Alex or Kisa because it was about us, right? So I'm glad I didn't have to write about us. But they asked me to write about the history of Southeast Asian food in New York. So
Okay.
I could skip Philippines because there was, and the Philippine, they asked Alex to write a whole section on Philippine food.
Who? Alice?
N-
Alex.
Alex or Kisa. So
Okay.
the Philippines has a separate section on the food, while all the others I had to write about just Southeast Asian, right?
Mhm.
So I think Thai and Philippines got their own section, which is great, don't you think? You
Of
know,
course.
yeah. So at least, I was able to contribute to two Oxford books about. Well, the second one was the Gotham one was didn't have Philippine food; it was Southeast Asian food. That was interesting to research. I was counting. At first, I said, yeah, I can do that. No sweat, right? Southeast Asian food. And then I started counting the countries. So, my God, I think there was a dozen or something. I said, how am I going to write about this? And, you're only given, what, 800 words? But they allowed me to write
But
1,500
Ami,
words.
you said you came with a certain type of maturity already,
Yes.
both of you. Did that come from lessons learned, failures, and success? All this before you really put your feet into the cement of Cendrillon.
Well, at least there was no romance
Okay.
involved.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people want to own a restaurant with romantic notions. Oh, I'm gonna eat there every day. I'm gonna bring my friends. It's like it's no fun, you know. So whenever I get invited to speak to people who, people who want to open up a restaurant and who have no experience, the first thing I said is, are you willing to give up your vacation? Are you willing to do 24/7? You know, you have no vacation
Mhm.
unless you're just an investor. I said,
Mhm.
this is a lifestyle choice. So at least when we went into this, we knew what we were getting into.
Yeah.
And it was a choice because at that point, we were just so unhappy with what we were doing. I was, after 10 years in Wall Street, there was this glass ceiling that, you're brown and you're a woman, you're never going to get anywhere there. And Romy was being, you know, tired of being executive chef of whatever restaurant and owned by other people, and he couldn't express himself. I mean, we were both very unhappy. So when we said, let's open up our own restaurant, of course we had no idea how we were going to do that. I mean, we had no money. So how do you do that? So it took us about 5 years. We got, some investors. We were able to put the money together. Don't ask me how, but we did. And this is what a friend of mine said. This architect friend of mine who designed Purple Yam.
Mhm.
Because these people ate at Cendrillon, and they said, if you ever open up another restaurant, we want to be the architects and the designers, and we'll really do it for nothing. So, and they did, right? And then when we opened, we treated them, and then she said, huh, so now you've got the restaurant going, now you've got to run it. Right? So, see, that's the thing. You have this romance, like opening a restaurant, it's so exciting. Then you gotta run it.
Okay.
And there's a cycle. There are times it does well, and there are times it will not. Like in the 27 years that we were running first Cendrillon and then Purple Yam, we had 9/11 when we were in Cendrillon. We had 9/11, and we were only 16 blocks away from
Okay.
ground zero.
Let I think the best way to continue your story is to already go through the journey that
Yeah.
you had, because that is like this is like the storybook. And whether you say it's not romantic or not, I think there was so much romance in the journey that I read about you, Ami. Really. Okay, so let's start
Well, we
with
can
this.
just go through the photos just to show people how young we were when we started. We still look pretty good then,
Yep,
skinny and young. So
you still do, Ami. You still look good.
we were in Cendrillon. We had Cendrillon for 13 and a half years. So
Why
in
the name?
August. Well, because Romy fell in love with this ballet, right? And there was this French, you know, ballet troupe from Lyon, and their signature ballet piece is Cendrillon. So it's Cinderella. And
Mhm.
when they came to New York, there were all these flyers, and Romy was just like Googling Cendrillon everywhere. So, okay. Then before we were able to open the restaurant, we started doing vinegars. So we named it Cendrillon Vinegars. So,
Mm,
this is so funny. We named it Cendrillon because we kind of connected with Cinderella. You know,
okay.
we the Philippines is the Cinderella of Southeast Asian food, right? It's like the kulelat at that time. And everybody was, why is Vietnamese, Thai, Chinese, Korean food so mainstream? Even Indian food is making some headway. But why not the Philippines? And like, I can't answer that. The only thing I can respond to is, well, I'll do my bit, right? And if anything happens, fine. So this is Cinderella, so Cendrillon, and this is the funny part. We really did not want to claim that we were a Filipino restaurant, because we did not want to be limited to being a Filipino restaurant. We wanted to showcase our Filipino roots
Yeah.
by showcasing dishes from the Philippines. But we did not want to be limited by that. We also wanted to do other Asian food. So we called ourselves Pan Asian Filipino
Mm-hmm.
food. And that's how it's so funny, like you're trying to move away from being limited by Filipino food. And of course, when the media came, we were Filipino. you know, that was the handle that the media could understand. So they called it a Filipino restaurant. So
Okay.
then we said, okay, Filipino Pan Asian.
All right.
So that is it was a big restaurant. Okay. It's like about 1,700 square feet
Uh-huh.
for one floor. And this, a customer, one of our first customers was into eBay, right? And eBay started at about that time in
Hmm,
1995. And
talaga?
yeah, that's why he was one of the first, and he came into the restaurant and said, I got this from eBay. All these postcards from the Philippines, and they were done by Americans who were traveling around the Philippines, documenting the Philippines because we were a colony of the United States. And then they turned them into postcards, colorized them in Germany, and
Yeah.
this was in that pile, a whole box of postcards.
Si John
And
Sebastian ba yun? Hindi, ano? Not Sebastian. Not him.
who's Sebastian? No,
Parang there was a
these
guy
were
who
all
could...
photographs by Americans,
Okay.
like a gazillion Americans who were traveling around the Philippines, and then I guess the U.S. government got them and
Mm-hmm.
turned them into postcards, and a lot of them also had postage at the back, like how much postage you should put, like 2 cents, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So or I don't know, but when I saw this, and it says the title was "A Woman from Negros,"
Uh-huh.
and I said, wow, this woman, I just fell in love with this woman. Like, to me,
Yeah.
she said mother, she said home, and that was, I think, she captured what we wanted to communicate in our restaurant. What our restaurants are all about. It's not like just to showcase good food. It's not really about that, but really to showcase what is good about Filipino food, and that it is cooked and cooked with love and served with hospitality and generosity.
Okay.
And so that's what, no matter what we cook, that's what we wanted to communicate. That this is what Filipinos do. This is our contribution to food. We put love in it, and hospitality. This is like the first media coverage we got from New
Uh-huh.
York Magazine. They came and they took photos of us. Look at how
How
skinny.
young were you then? How young?
45. We were 45
Talaga?
years old.
Oh, mukha
Yeah,
kayong
both
ano,
of us.
mukhang bata, ah.
Well, Filipinos look young, no?
Yes,
When
that's
Filipinos, I know the Americans used to say, "What? You're already this?" I said,
yeah.
Filipinos can be 80 years old and they look like they're 40 or 50. So, anyway, so that's we had an open kitchen, and across that are the booths. and we had that's the bar area.
Yeah. Who was that? Whose picture is that one?
This one
No,
was
the
taken
that
by a photographer for New York Magazine.
no, this one I see a profile there at the background. I don't know if that's ano. Can't tell.
Which one?
Anyway, okay. Mamaya makikita mo.
Okay.
Yan, parang anyway, okay, next slide. Aha.
Yeah, this is actually the opening party, you know.
Aha.
Uh, and like 2,000 people came. We had no idea, like word spread out that we were having a party and we were giving out food, and a gazillion people showed up, and we
Yep.
had no idea who they were.
What
And
that was
they,
a party that
everything.
everybody wanted to be a part of, diba? To be
Yeah.
seen. To be seen,
So
my God.
this is the first time we opened the doors of the restaurant and cooked, you know. Okay.
All right. And your staff was what? Not Filipino also? Or Romy was the only
No,
Filipino?
no, no. Because at that time Filipinos were not into waitering,
Oh.
you know. No. Filipinos were into clerical, like in the administrative, or they were in the medical community. They were not in the service at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you see them, you know.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
next, we can keep going, you know.
All right. Um,
Next slide.
oh, bata pa rin. Mga bagets pa rin kayo dito.
That's still Cendrillon. That is
Yeah.
the back part, and that's underneath the skylight. It was a
Mm-hmm.
big restaurant. We could fit in 90 people at one time. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Purple Yam is very small. It's like we can only like half.
Okay, Romy was cooking, and what were you doing?
I was front of the house.
All right.
When we first opened, Romy was behind the line. He was cooking, and I was not visible. I was back of the house. We had we hired a manager. And
Uh-huh.
then after a few months, first we were like mobbed, right? For about 3 or 4 months. And then it kind of slowed down. And then it became very slow. And we were like, we were really worried. This is when reality hits you, right? That
Yeah.
you can't just sit back and expect things to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And we both, we sat down and we had a heart to heart discussion. Where did we go wrong?
Uh-huh.
So should we change? Like, you know what? You cannot change horses in midstream. Yeah, like I said, look, we have a vision, we have a concept. We're gonna have to stick to it, right? So you know what we did? I fired the manager because she was the front of she was the face, and she wasn't that great, right? So she's the person that people get to see.
Yeah.
So then Romy left the line and became the expediter. So he was there on the floor
Uh-huh.
managing the flow of the food, and I was there uh, greeting people and fixing things, right? Any problem, that did it.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to turn things around. We discovered that the restaurant world is a retail business, right? You build relationships one by one.
Yep.
Each customer you have to nurture, and then that's why they come back.
That's
Because if
true.
you're not the person greeting, then they don't know you,
Yeah.
right? Then you can get good food in many restaurants, but they have to associate that food with your hospitality and your friendship. So then it came to the point that people would call up, "Are you gonna be there?" And you could not travel, like, "No, I'm gonna go to the Philippines." "Oh, okay, I'll just come back when you're back." Like, oh boy, like that was the that was the hard part, right? Because people will call up first to find out if we're there, and if we're not there, they won't come, right? So
Mhm.
we gotta change that, right? But anyway, that's how we were able to turn it around. And do
Okay.
you know, that's what, when we went to Purple Yam,
Okay.
and
I'm turning now to Purple Yam.
because of the rents in Soho were skyrocketing. They wanted to charge something like 35,000 a month. Like, forget it, right? It's
Wow.
not worth it. So we moved to Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and um, you can keep going. You can keep showing the slides. So that's the exterior. We went to Ditmas Park. It's a beautiful neighborhood filled with Victorian homes, and
Mm-hmm.
the sidewalks are so wide, and it's Cortelio Road is so wide also. So that wide sidewalk really served us in good stead during COVID, when we couldn't have indoor dining. We have a
Mm-hmm.
backyard, so keep going. So that's the interior. Keep
Uh-huh.
going.
All right. Very
Keep
nice. Very nice.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
how it looks like when it's full.
Uh-huh.
And and I want to show the
Sorry.
this was during COVID, because
Ah,
served we never served outside the front. No, because we have a backyard. But since
uh-huh.
we couldn't seat people inside, we sat people outside the sidewalk and the back. So keep going. Yeah, this is our
Nice.
yeah. So, and then Perry Mama Real did the bamboo fence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
when we first opened, there were other restaurants that were already in that neighborhood who were doing very well. And they got really worried, when we opened, because we made it was a big deal, and some people said we were a game changer, and we were like, New York Magazine and Time Out New York were fighting as to who would feature us first. New York Times was featuring us. They were doing stories about us even before we opened. So they got really worried. So the managers of those restaurants would hang out in our restaurant for weeks.
Uh-huh.
You know what they said to me afterwards? They said to me, I've been sitting here for a week and I really don't know any of these people coming into your restaurant. And so they said, "You're not taking away from our clientele. You're bringing in a whole new set of clientele."
Mm-hmm.
So they were so happy because we were contributing to the lifeblood of that community. And
Uh-huh. What
those
what
are
was
the
the ratio? Ami, what was the ratio of Filipinos to other guests?
well, it's usually like 40% Filipino and the rest are non-Filipinos.
Uh-huh.
So that could be a mixture of Asians, just regular Americans and from the neighborhood. But with Purple Yam, I would say 30 to 40% would be Cendrillon customers. If it weren't for Cendrillon customers, I
Uh-uh.
think we would never have made it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know,
So they
so
grew with you. They grew with you through the
yeah,
years.
until now, just last Easter, I had to go into the restaurant because families that have been coming since 1995 were coming,
Uh-huh.
and
Very.
their children have now graduated and are working. Some are getting married, and all these kids we saw as little toddlers, right?
So
So
probably
we
we,
move a lot of.
sorry,
Okay,
you would say that wherever you put up your nest, it became like a comfort zone for the families who knew you or who didn't even know you, but they started feeling very familiar, diba?
we have a friend. She's a regular. She's an American, non. She's Caucasian. She was a regular customer at Cendrillon, and then she moved to Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
So every year she comes and visits, and every year she has to come to Purple Yam, and she just came, and I wrote to her thanking her, and then she came back. She wrote me and she said, as soon as I enter that restaurant, I know it's home. It's there's no place like it. He said it's a feeling of warmth and family and home. I said, wow, that's the best gift you can ever tell me, that
Yeah.
you feel like home, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole point. Because, that's what, if there's anything I can impart to people who want to open up a restaurant, it's really, I know it's a business and you're doing food. It's not really about food, it's about relationships.
Very
you
good.
make you make your best friends there, your net whole network. Like when during COVID, right, we had to close for several months, and we were really going to be in deep trouble, especially when we couldn't, especially during the winter, because people can't sit outside when it's freezing in January. I
Yeah.
remember last year, January of last year, one of our regular customers who had been coming since 1995, he said, "Can I do a GoFundMe for you?" I said, "Nah, kaya naman, like, no, I really, you know." And he said, "There's no shame in it. I've done this for some of my friends who own bars." So he said, "Why don't we try it?" Okay, I said, let's. How much money do you want to raise? Okay, like we're gonna be closed for maybe a few months, so maybe 30,000. Let's do a goal of 30,000. And I said to myself, if we make 5,000, I'll be very happy. In 2 days, when we announced it, in 2 days we hit over 30,000. And I just kept going and going. I mean, I think we ended up with something like 45,000, something like that. And people were giving like $1,000, like, I was like so shocked at what people were doing, right? So I
Uh-huh.
was writing to them like, and these are not millionaires, right? I mean, some of them aren't. Like, and so I said, I'm just so overwhelmed. And the common response was, you gave us the best moments of our lives.
That's nice.
You know, we had baptisms, we had birthdays, we had wedding celebrations at both
Mm-hmm.
Cendrillon and Purple Yam.
Uh-huh.
And they said, this is nothing to what you have given us. And those are our best memories.
Okay.
So I said, so I think if there's a lesson to be learned there,
Mm-hmm.
if people want to go into this thing, if you have to do it for love, for love for food, love of people. You have to love people. If you don't love people, don't do it. You know,
Okay. And then
because
you
you will
extended
you will
your
find. you will meet very challenging people along the way.
That's
But
true.
so
You
then
and Purple
2014,
Yam
we
Malate.
opened up Malate.
Uh-huh.
My
Why?
mother passed away in 2012, and the house was feeling very empty. And so my siblings, my brothers, and I said, okay, and that the house kind of looked a little bit run down, because my mother was in decline and was getting sick, and so nobody was really taking care of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So when she passed away, we wanted to renovate it and give it new life.
Yeah.
And we did it by opening it up as a private dining, by reservation only. So that's the facade and that's the
Yeah.
sala.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Been
And
there.
this house is as old as me. It was built in 1949 after the war,
Uh-huh.
and and then that's my mother's
I
bedroom,
remember, yeah.
transformed into a dining room.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the opening party with Yvette and Lara. Lara on the left side was my architect, and
Uh-huh.
she was the one who designed. She's I mean, she's done all the wildflower. She's just one of the most popular architects. And I was surprised when she told me, you started me on restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So
And
she
the
said,
other lady?
that's Yvette. That's her sister, Yvette
Uh,
Fernandez. She's like one
ah,
of the main forces behind the Lenny Kiko campaign. You know,
okay.
she was
Oh,
with Summit.
sorry.
She's with Summit. So I just put this photo in because
Yes,
that's like just such a beautiful part of the
yes,
house. The
yeah.
light comes in, and all the photographers, so every time they're doing a photo shoot, they choose that spot. So this
Uh-huh.
was for Smile Jar. Conseco took this shot, and for Smile magazine, and
Yeah.
that's the bibingka, and those are the cheeses from Bacolod, the Italian style cheeses from Bacolod.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
everything. We try to use everything, all the artisanal products from the Philippines. So we use a lot of the heirloom rice when we do bibingka.
Yes.
When we put cheese in any of our products, it's got to be artisanal.
Yes.
No processed cheese. And it's got to be from the Philippines.
Yeah.
So,
Beautiful. It's really beautiful. I love you. I love you, Ami. Okay.
oh, I love the
All right.
Philippines. We are so talented. We have so many resources. So that's the first edition, which came out in '06. And then when we left the Cendrillon and opened in Ditmas Park as Purple Yam, the publisher asked me to do a second edition reflecting the change.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that it's one of their best sellers. And the head of sales himself, based in London, traveled to New York and told them, you need to do this second edition of the book because and they said that usually the usual trajectory of a book is that they shoot up and they have high sales in the first few years, and then the sales go down. And they said
Yeah.
that this is a book that just kept selling. So that's why I redid some of the sections, and we redid the last part to reflect the Purple Yam
Uh-huh.
now
Okay.
restaurant.
Any more editions coming up?
No, I think they stopped printing it. So
Wow.
that's one day I will have the energy to look for another publisher and uh, maybe have it reprinted.
I think you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So,
Oh, this was the DFA tour you were talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
I think this was such a gift to us because the DFA came to me and asked me if we wanted to do this tour. I mean, I was looking for this, right? And I was dealing, the DFA is just one of the best for me, the best agencies, government agencies, the Philippines,
Yep.
because they really have professionals running that place. And we started off the tour in New York, the PCG New York, and that was this is Tess De Vega. She was consul general at the time. She's now an ambassador. I
Uh-huh.
think she just finished being ambassador to Germany. I don't know where she's reassigned now. And this
Okay.
was the team that led. We I brought our Purple Yam team in Malate. Two people, uh,
Hmm.
Chef Rap and Alvin, who are Rap has now moved on and opened his own restaurant, so
Okay.
he's no longer with us. So these are
There. Wow.
vinegars that we I had so many vinegars. We had cane sugar from Ilocos, uh, and sukang, you know, um, sugar cane, coconut sap vinegar from Sorsogon and from the Visayas. And then we had also, and then suka sa sasa,
Yeah.
you know that, right? You have
Yeah. I tried
experienced
that.
exploding suka from Bulacan. And we also had fruit vinegars. We had
Mm-hmm.
mango vinegar and tamarind vinegar and mango, mulberry vinegar. So this was uh, this was in Seattle, and we really used all the artisanal ingredients. So we used Malagos chocolate with Kalinga, with the heirloom rice
Yeah.
from the Cordilleras. And then
Uh-huh.
all the halo-halo ingredients we tried to bring in. We made the sweets in the Philippines and transported them, you know.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um, this
All
was in
right.
Chicago, and that's a Phil Am chef. I forget his name now, but he was he was doing a very reputable restaurants. I don't know what he's doing now,
Uh-huh.
but this
Okay.
was in Uncle Mike's restaurant in Chicago. They do Filipino food there, you know. And this again was in Seattle. That's I don't know if you know Marvin
Yeah.
from Burnt Lumpia.
Yep.
He did adobo. He did adobo road cookbook.
Yeah.
He's also
Okay.
an adobo guy, and
Uh-huh.
that's Chef Rap, and doing the lechon pork belly, and of course
Yeah.
there are all the condiments there, all the vinegars there in front, and we did chutneys also. So
Woo!
yeah, I know I'm getting hungry just looking at this. And then keep going. Oh,
Yeah.
these are all our spirits, from
Yeah.
Distilleria, Limtuaco,
Yeah.
Olive.
Yeah.
Uh, she's just she's just fabulous.
Yeah. We're
Yeah,
having
these
her
are all our
also in the
products.
interview. Yep. Yep.
We had so much stuff we couldn't really use everything, but whenever we could set up a bar, we served them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Okay, and then
these ones are a lot of these are moving now, even here in Houston.
really,
Yeah.
so this is what I came up with this dish called pancit malate. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a shrimp sauce, like a luglog, instead of a shrimp sauce, we used a burnt coconut cream sauce. It's so,
Wow.
and then we put all kinds of seafood on top.
Mm,
Yeah, it's really
very nice.
good. Yeah,
Very
so we
nice.
did that. I don't
Before.
remember which city this was. This was probably Chicago, probably.
Mhm.
This
Ah.
is in Chicago with Chef Sharwin T.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
who's the other one?
this is Chef Rap
Ah. Okay.
from, and that's Romy. right?
Of course,
I love
yes.
this photo. It's so cute, you know. Sharwin was there. Just coincidentally, he was there, and
Mm-hmm.
he was just such a generous guy. He
Yeah.
he worked. I mean, he's a chef, pero just tell me what to do. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right. So,
that
well,
I we can never repeat that DFA tour. It's just so wonderful.
and you know what? We can never really fully end this because there's so many things to ask. And
Yeah.
we've gone over time.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
no, because I'm just saying that there's so much to dig in that
Yeah.
that you have already dug for us.
Uh,
You
but
know,
we're standing on your shoulders, right? People like Nora Daza,
Aling Asyang,
yes.
my lola. Even Mother
I really
Sita.
wanted to include her in memories,
Yeah, I know.
but circumstances.
You,
But
another book,
you
another
did the
book.
book, the aristocrat book, right?
Nobody is old, and nobody is too old for another book, Amy. Oh, anyway,
But I grew up on aristocrat food, huh?
yeah, thank you. But anyway, okay. As an activist, as a custodian of memories, as a romanticist, and an historian. And you said you're not a foodie. You definitely are 101%. Come on. New Yorker from
I'm a
New.
lover of our food. I
Yeah,
just
just
love our
kaya
food.
you are
I and
from
because of that, I love our people and our
yes,
country, our environment.
yeah.
It
I
all
think
it all puts, the food unites all of that. Because
yes,
you can't have food without the people, right?
correct. And without the
People build
land,
it.
and without the thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, give us some last words to the young ones who think that okay, while we're going global forward, we have to look back. But what do you want them to look back to?
Well, first of all, they have to be proud.
All right, that's
They have to
important.
love themselves.
Okay.
They have to love where they came from, their parents, the history of their parents. They have to understand that. And they have to love, they have to himay, you. And how do you love? It's loving means you understand. You
You
learn
accept.
about everything you can learn.
Mm-hmm.
They can start with your parents
Yes.
and your family. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
where did your family come from? Like what province, of course. And then that's already you won't finish, right? You start with
Oo.
that province, you never end because you
Mm.
go town to town, barrio to barrio, and then the neighboring provinces, the whole region, then the whole archipelago. You'll never end. And then life is so interesting. Actually, if you do that, it's very rewarding. You'll never be bored.
Mm-hmm.
And most of all, it will teach you to love, to be
Okay.
compassionate,
Mm-hmm.
to be empathetic.
Okay.
Those are all the things that are very, very important. Looking at the world that we're
And
facing now,
and you said
so much
relationship.
hatred.
Yeah, and you said business is about relationships also, right?
Yes,
It's important.
and
Yes.
making sure the other person gets something valuable from you.
All right. That's true. Okay. My last question before we end. What do you see in your crystal ball about Filipino food going global? It already is, but
It's already
how?
global.
Yeah, I know. How much farther should we go, or do we stay here and or what do we develop? What do you what?
You know,
what
when you talk about food, you're talking about people, right?
okay.
You can't have the food without the people.
Mm-hmm.
So the food follows wherever Filipinos go. So, you know, I think we should all support each other. I think no more of that, you're authentic, I'm authentic, you're not. Please stop that. My adobo is better than yours. Please stop that. Every adobo is a treasure.
Right. I love you.
You touch your adobo, it's great because you touched it.
Yeah. Very nice. Really.
So just respect yourself, love who you are, where you came, your DNA, what you eat is, and if you love it, there's a reason you love it.
Uh huh. And with that, Amy and Romy, if you're
Robbie is
still
gone.
yeah, we want to thank you so much. From the
Well,
start of the interview, you were already inspiring about how you love kakanin and all, and
yeah.
we felt with you. We felt the same. We felt the same with you. But people who were not are not able to travel like you have, or are not able to be a citizen of two worlds. It's still enough that we hear from you about relationships, about loving, about looking into your province and all that. I think everybody should really take what you did and also buy the book, because that is full of memories that they can relate to their own lolas and
Yeah.
own moms.
No, and also people should write their books.
Good. Can you tell that to the audience now?
Even if you don't see yourself publishing,
Yeah.
I tell everyone, document
Yes.
what your family does.
That's what
And
I
then
was.
who knows?
Yeah.
Put it online, right?
Yeah. No, actually, what I'm telling friends is make a pamphlet. Don't be ambitious to have a book, na
Yeah,
hardcover and all
yeah.
like Ami's book. No, just have a pamphlet or yung handwritten, distributed during family reunions, and then expand, 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 edit and edit, di ba?
And with the digital capabilities, it's easy.
Yes, yeah.
It's
So
easy to share.
yeah, so
And then you
Ami,
can just have a blog or something, right?
yeah. You know, Ami, I have a confession to make. Before I even met you, I said I don't know how to approach you because you're so intellectual, and I wouldn't know how to do it. But
Intellectual.
you know what? No, no, no. You know what? You know what connected us was the artisanal uh, palette, the food, the discoveries that you had. And I said, this woman has her feet on the ground, and it's on Philippine ground. And she also talks about it in New York ground. So, as I said, you're a citizen of two worlds, but your heart is always where Filipino food is served. And for that, I'm very thankful, and we are all inspired, especially the Gen X who will want, they're so sometimes they're crazy now. They don't know what to put on their menus, and they don't have a foundation. So
Yeah.
I think
But
audience,
Nancy, you also inspire me.
thank you, thank you. Pareho lang tayo sa
Super,
edad natin.
super, super love you.
Yeah.
You have no
So
idea.
thank you very much. I hope kumain tayo ulit ng puto one of these days
Yeah.
in
Can you
Manila.
steal some kalasyaw puto for me and ship it to me?
Well, nasa may New Manila at yung taga Kalasyaw doon sa bandang New Manila, at saka doon sila nagtitinda ng
O doon
Totoong
sa
alasang.
EDSA ba yun or sa highway? I see them.
Uh, along New Manila meron, and then the one near highway dun sa may going to Green Meadows or somewhere, the Corinthian meron. Totoo yan sila yung totoo. But
Hmm.
we have to have another session with you.
Okay.
So,
Just talking
thank you
about
very
puto.
much. Thank you. Alam mo, gusto kong kumain ngayon ng puto.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
You
meron
know,
din
when
dito.
I went to Digos, yung outside Davao, there's puto.
Kahit
You
niyog,
know,
gusto ko
I
nga eh.
ate that puto so fast. Then my stomach, I had a stomach ache for like because it was so good. I think I stuffed 3 huge ones.
Well, we will do that. We will do that because we will have that soon. But Annie, I love you. Thank you very much for your
Okay, I
time.
love you
You know,
too.
it's past midnight and it's you have work again tomorrow. Give our kisses to Romy and God is
Yeah.
good. Purple Yam forever. Amen. Thank you.
Filipino food forever.
Amen. Aktivista.
Bye.
Ito yung aktivista na ano, na dapat talagang sundin. Okay, Ami. Goodbye and thank you very much.
Bye.
God
Thank
bless you.
you.